Okay, so I think we can start. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to welcome you at today's webinar on visas for study or exchange in US. My name is Katja Cankar, and I'm an Education USA advisor in Slovenia. Our center is located at the Javni štipendijski sklad, and our mission is to offer free and quality advice to everybody who wish to study in the US. You can follow or contact us on Facebook or find our contacts at Javni sklad's webpage. And today we are going to talk about the visa process, and I'm really honored to welcome with us Larissa Proctor, who is the consul at the US Embassy in Ljubljana. Prior to Slovenia, she was posted to Kampala, Uganda for 3 years, and other prior diplomatic postings include Algeria, Saudi Arabia, and Washington, DC. In the US system, consuls handle both citizen services and visas to the US. Larissa has done consular work for 12 years and loves encouraging foreign students to study in the US. Larissa, before I hand over to you, I would just like to suggest that we leave time for questions at the end of the presentation. And now, welcome. Hi.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Katja, for that introduction. I'm going to share my screen, so please bear with me a moment as I get that up. Okay, can you see my screen? Katja, can you see it? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I don't know who is here attending today, and I know it's being recorded for further viewing later from others, but from those of you that are here today, maybe you could put in the chat for me. Let me know, are you already committed to studying in the US? You've determined that that's what you're going to do, or are you still thinking about it? You're not sure, you're weighing your options. Everybody could just pop into the chat and give us a few words about where you're at in your decision-making process about studies. Okay, I see some people. Some are thinking, some are committed to doing a research or an exchange, considering options, moving to Boston to study music. I have a friend who's a professor at Berkeley. Congratulations. Great. All right. So there's quite a mix of people here. Some already committed to studying in the US, and some of you still thinking about it and weighing your options. I'm here today to primarily talk about the visa process, but my main message today is that I don't want the visa process to be the reason that you don't study in the US. I'm here to reassure you that in the State Department, and including the folks that I work with in visas, we are enthusiastic about welcoming international students to the United States, and a US visa should never be your stumbling block to studying in the US. I'm here today to prove to you that it's actually quite easy, it's manageable, and it should not be the reason that you choose to go elsewhere or not to study in the US. So I work for the Department of State, which is where we get our diplomatic corps from in the US system. And specifically, I'm in the Bureau of Consular Affairs. The Bureau of Consular Affairs, it provides consular services. So abroad, we're concerned with the safety and security of our citizens abroad. That's the part I'm not here to discuss today, but that's half of my job. The other half is visas, both immigrant visas and non-immigrant visas to the United States. We're about facilitating legitimate travel to the United States. I will tell you that in adjudicating visa applications, our top priority is national security. We're enthusiastic about having international students, legitimate students, come to the United States because we recognize that students and exchange of visitors between our countries, it has numerous benefits. And one of those benefits is that when you all hopefully decide to study in the United States, most people have a very positive experience, and you take those experiences back home with you. And we realize that that exchange of ideas furthers our mission here as the US Embassy and our image abroad. So we are enthusiastic about that. Okay, excuse me as I look away. I'm on 2 screens here, so I'll be going back and forth. So students are a top priority for us at the Department of State, and the US remains the top destination for international students. Because of that, and because of the values of such exchanges, we really do give priority to visa appointments for students. Between 2021 and 2022, more than 948,000 students came to the United States from abroad to study. It's a significant number, and we want to see it to continue and even to grow. On your screen, you'll see an example of a visa. This is Happy Traveler, if you can read her name. So this is Happy Traveler. This is not the kind of visa that you would be applying for because this is a B1, B2. And if I assume most of you are Slovenian, most of you don't need a B1, B2 to go visit the United States because you qualify for the visa waiver program. Regardless, a student visa will also look like this. It will just have different letters on it. It's basically a sticker and it goes in your passport. It's not a stamp. Please don't call it a stamp. I don't know where that fallacy came from, but it's a fancy sticker with security features and with your biodata on it. What a visa does is it gives you permission to go to the border to request permission to enter the United States. I like to compare it to a knock on the door. What a visa does is that it allows you to go to the door of the United States and to knock on it and say, hey, I got a visa. Please, will you allow me to enter? I say that because some people think that once you have the visa, there's no way you'll have any further problems. The vast majority of people will not have further problems, but it is the purview of Customs and Border Protection to review your visa and your case at the border, which is usually at an airport, and it's up to them to admit you to the United States or not. Sometimes there are red flags or things come up and people can be turned around at the border. The visa gives you permission to knock at that door, and Customs and Border Protection determines whether they will admit you to the United States. Generally, students travel on an F visa, which we'll touch on in a moment, and F visas are granted duration of status. So the officer at the border or the airport will look at your visa, will look at you, will ask you a few questions, and he or she will determine how long you can remain in the United States. The vast majority of students are given duration of status. What that means is that you can remain in the United States as long as you are in legitimate full-time student status. Even if your visa expires, you can remain in the United States. The visa does not determine your status. It just determines when you can enter the United States. More on that in a minute. So there's three kinds of visas that students generally apply for: the F, the M, and the J. The most common is the F, the least common is the M, and in between lies little j. So the F is for your traditional student in an academic or a language program. The main difference between F and J is that J's are for a discrete period of time and for a specific purpose. They're generally exchange programs. They're for shorter periods of time, or they could be for graduate study as well. Graduate study could be done on a J or an F. An M is for a vocational student or an other non-academic student that might be going. We don't see many of those here in Slovenia or worldwide, but they are out there. One thing I will say is that if somebody comes to the US in one status and they want to change their status, they decide after they arrive in the United States that, hey, I want to study here. Let me change my status to a student. That is possible if you entered on a visa. Because of the audience I'm talking to today, those of you who enter the United States on the visa waiver program, you are not eligible to change your status while you're in the United States. So if you go on the visa waiver program and say, hey, I want to study here, let me just change my status, please be informed now that you are not able to. You have to depart the country and get a student visa before you're able to re-enter and then start your studies program. Okay, so I'm going to prepare you for the interview to convince you that this is going to be one of the easiest parts of studying in the US for you. Before the interview, you have to complete the visa application, which is the form DS-160, which you can find on our website, which is listed here. I also list our website later on in the presentation as well. And you're going to schedule your interview appointment once you have your application completed. After that, you're going to go to SEVIS to pay your SEVIS fee at fmjfee.com. And you're going to check that your passport has at least 6 months validity on it. Students must have 6 months validity from the date of their entry. So you have to have 6 months. If you don't, please change it before you come, get a new passport before you even come for your interview. A word on the SEVIS fee. SEVIS is administered by Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. For any SEVIS related questions, you really do have to go to ICE, as we call it, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. But the SEVIS system, it stands for Student and Exchange Visitor Information System. And it's the way that the Department of Homeland Security keeps track of students, international students, and their status. The fee that you pay to them is the cost that it takes for them to maintain that system. And we cannot issue a visa until we see that that fee has been paid. So even if everything else looks great in your situation, but that fee has not been paid, the visa will not be issued. Excuse me. These are the required documents for your interview. Passport with 6 months validity, a photo, which must be 5 by 5 centimeters, and no glasses. No glasses are allowed in your visa photos. If you come with glasses, we will send you to go out and get another photo on the same day of the interview. You must print out the confirmation page of your application, and you bring that first page with you to the interview. Forms I-20 is required for F&M visas, and Form DS-2019 is required for J visas, one or the other, depending on what you're applying for. I should add that the school or university where you will be doing your studies or your program, they will tell you which visa you'll be applying for. You have to bring the receipt for your SEVIS fee, and you have to bring cash. We only accept the visa fee in cash. The fee worldwide is $160. Currently, with the exchange rate, it's 152 euros if you pay in euros. That is subject to change, but as of right now, the fee for visas worldwide remains at 160, at least for the foreseeable future. There is talk of it going up this year, but we don't have a final determination on that. One thing that I will add that you also need, in addition to these things that isn't listed here, and this is specific to our embassy here in Ljubljana, is that you need a padded envelope with 2 C stamps and your address in Slovenia. If you're successful, which I trust the vast majority of you will be, we will return your passport with the visa in it to you via mail. You must pay the postage, and the envelope must be padded to protect from rain. It takes approximately 1 week for you to receive your visa back after your interview if you are approved on the same day as your interview. Some people get it back within a few days. The postal system here is very good, but usually not more than 1 week. Another suggested document, but is not required, is that you bring proof of your ability to pay for your studies. If your studies or your program are not being funded by another entity, then you must bring evidence that you have the funds to pay for your studies. You have to show that you have liquid funds for the first year of your studies. The amount that you need is reflected on the form I-20, and that's the amount that the consular officer is looking for to make sure that you have the ability to fund your studies. If you've been granted a scholarship, it should be reflected on your form I-20, and you don't need to bring anything further. If it's a scholarship outside the university or school, then you might have to bring evidence of that scholarship if it's been granted to you from somewhere in Slovenia, for instance. Okay, next slide. So for the interview, what do I want to know as the consular officer conducting your interview? I want to know who you are, what do you want to do, and how are you going to fund it? It's incumbent upon you to explain these things to the consular officer, but I will say, please answer the questions that you're asked thoroughly, but don't go into extraneous details unless you're asked further questions. So who are you? What's your story? I understand that many students are young. What are your ties to Slovenia or to your country of residence? What do you want to do? Why do you want to study what you want to study? What are you going to study? And how does it line up with what you've already done in life? And how are you going to pay for it? In addition to these, I want to know what you're going to do when your program has finished in the United States. What are your current plans? Possible outcomes: issued. Yay, you've been approved. I'm here to tell you something right now, and that is an encouraging point. The vast majority of students who apply for visas to study in the United States worldwide are approved. More than aren't are approved. And so you don't have to worry that there might be a problem with your case. I mean, there might actually, it's a case-by-case basis, but the vast majority of students who apply for a visa to study in the United States are approved. However, another unfortunate outcome would be a refusal. Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, under which we must adjudicate our cases, you could be refused under Section 214B, which mainly relates to your ties. Do you have ties to a foreign country that would compel you to return to that country at the conclusion of your studies? But 214B also relates to a few other general categories of refusal. 221G is a refusal, technically, but it's a soft refusal. If I were to refuse you 221G, it means that I need to see some more information from you. And once you provide it, if it's sufficient, I will overcome that soft refusal and issue you the visa. You could also get stuck in administrative processing. And there's no way for us to know who will get stuck in administrative processing in advance of the interview. That administrative processing is really a catch-all term, and it could mean a number of things, including that your case requires further vetting, and I don't know how long it will take to complete. Because of that, and because I cannot predict I cannot predict who that will happen to until you appear before me for an interview, I really encourage students to apply as early as possible. As early as you have the I-20 or the DS 2019, please do apply. You can always check the status of your case on this link here in the PowerPoint. Oops, go back. Administrative processing, there's too many words on this slide, but basically it's just further review for multiple reasons. And one of those reasons is beyond my control, and I won't be able to do anything to speed it up. So please do apply as soon as you can. Apply early and basically apply as soon as you know you're going to study and you have the form in your hand. Your Form I-20, which is required for Fs. Electronic Form I-20s are now acceptable. These electronic signatures are valid for 12 months. What you would do is you would print your form and you bring it with you to the interview. Where do you get this form? You get it from your designated school official, your DSO. Your DSO is now able to email these forms to the email address listed for you in the CVIS system. So you would want to make sure that you have put in the correct address. And then you would bring this form with you to the interview. However, for J's, which are exchange programs, the DS 2019, we still require an original with a wet signature on it. So please keep that in mind. Sorry, getting a phone call. Okay, next, the dreaded COVID-19 vaccinations. Are they still required for entry? They are. If you are not a citizen of the United States, you must be vaccinated in order to enter the United States. There are a few exemptions, which we will go over in just a moment. Just trying to get my volume to go down on my ringer. Okay. So you must be fully vaccinated with a US approved vaccine, and you must be 2 weeks past your last vaccination dose. Most vaccines, US approved vaccines, require 2 doses. Johnson & Johnson just requires 1. So Johnson & Johnson just requires 1 vaccine. However, please note that a booster is not required. We get that question a lot. Additionally, your last vaccine of the 2 could have been 2 years ago. That's still okay, and that's acceptable. We also get the question a lot, when will this vaccination requirement end? We have no information on if or when it will be ceased. As of right now, it is still current. And there is no end date. It is an enforcement from US Centers for Disease Control. A few exemptions that, really just one exemption that would apply to somebody who is young and going to study in the US. Children under the age of 18 are exempted from getting this, from having to show that they've been vaccinated. Also, if you come from a country with little vaccination availability, you wouldn't have to be vaccinated, but that doesn't apply to Slovenia. Okay, so we are committed to international students in the State Department. In fiscal year 2022, we issued more student visas than in any year since fiscal year 2016, more than 581,000 visas in that year just for students. We do prioritize student visa appointments in all of our embassies and consulates because we recognize the inherent value of academic change and that international students are valued members of our academic communities across the United States. That being said, many embassies and consulates have a long wait time to get an appointment. They do still prioritize students, but there is a significant backlog we're still suffering from post-COVID. However, the majority of you, I assume, will be applying here in Ljubljana avec moi. And so I will see you here, and we do not have a wait time currently, but I do encourage you again to apply early to ensure that you can get to your studies on time. Not one more, but a few more things you should know, and these are common questions, a few final points in conclusion. Visa fixers have no inside information about the visa process. Visa fixers are just independent individuals or companies who are trying to make money by helping you with your visa process. I'm here to tell you that you don't need help with the visa process beyond what is available publicly on our websites, on our public-facing information. Additionally, your visa, if you're an F or an M, can be issued now up to a year before the start date on your program. That's a recent change. However, even though it can be issued up to a year before your program, you are not able to enter the United States until 30 days before the start date of your program. You can remain in the US for a month or two after your studies or your program has completed. F visas can remain for 60 days and J's for 30 days after the completion of your program. And student visas for Slovenians are valid for 2 years. I get a lot of complaints about this, and I'll give you the reason for it. Visa validity is determined by reciprocity. So the US grants Slovenians 2 years for a student visa. Why? Because Slovenia grants even less to Americans hoping to study here, but they've landed on 2 years for now. So that is not something that we can change easily, and it's not a decision that can be made on a case-by-case basis. Each person will be only granted a 2-year visa if you're from Slovenia. If you're from somewhere else, it's determined by your nationality and the passport that you hold. I'll take questions now, but also I want you to take note of our website, where we have a lot of information on these kinds of visas, as well as a link to where you would fill out the application and where you would schedule your appointment for your interview. If you can't find the information on our public-facing website, you can always send us an email at ljubljanavisa@state.gov. We do not take phone calls about visa questions, so this is your chance to ask any questions that you have now. And I'll open up the floor for that.
Okay, maybe I will post one question that we also get. Like, okay, after 2 years and you want to, I don't know, maybe travel to some other country, can you apply for another visa there? Like not in Slovenia, but maybe in Canada, for example?
Sure, yeah. So that's a good point, Katya, and something I should have elaborated on further. If after 2 years your visa has expired, as I mentioned, you don't need a new visa unless you want to depart the United States. So if you want to depart the United States on vacation, to visit family, for whatever, and you intend to return to your studies, that is when you need a new visa. You can apply for a visa at any US embassy or consulate in the world where you can find an appointment. As I mentioned before, we have a bit of a backlog worldwide with appointments. So your best bet for getting an appointment is really back here in Ljubljana. But if you want to go to Canada and apply for a visa there, you're absolutely welcome to. You should keep in mind that there's never 100% guarantee that you're going to be issued the visa. Perhaps you've had some troubles while you were in the US. Perhaps you got arrested or you broke some laws, or there could be any number of things, and you could get stuck out and in a third country if you choose to apply in another country. But the choice is yours. You can apply anywhere in the world.
Okay, thank you. And probably it's really important that you keep all the documents with you all the time, right? And that your I-20 is current if something like changes or you transfer to another institution or like all that stuff?
Yeah, it's really important, especially for your first entry to the United States, that your I-20 reflects accurate information. So if you're going to study at a community college in Boston, let's say, Charleston Community College, Bunker Hill Community College, and then you change your mind and now you want to, and you get the visa for that. Now you change your mind and you want to study at Boston University. But we actually write your university on your visa. So if you've changed the university where you intend to go for your first entry only, for your initial entry, you're going to have to get a new visa to reflect that. Additionally, your I-20, yes, is very important in that you keep it with you always. You don't always, I mean, when you're traveling, you don't put it in your luggage underneath the plane. You keep it with you in your hand luggage so that you can hand it over at the airport. You will get it back, but they will need to review it.
Isidor?
Yes, thank you. That was very systematic, so thank you for that. I was just thinking, so I'm going on a Fulbright scholarship to Harvard, but I'm still waiting for the final offer. So I'm also not sure which one should I apply for J or for F. So what would you recommend for a Fulbright exchange program?
So 2 point, you're welcome. 2 points here. Fulbright scholars always go on a J. Okay, that's 1 point. The second point is that the university will tell you which visa you're applying for. So they will communicate with you about that and they will send you the proper paperwork for the correct kind of visa. So for the Fulbright, they will send you the DS 2019 and it will have a big J written on it. And for others who might have the same question, you would get the I-20 and it would either say an F, a big F on it, or a big M on it.
Okay, we have another question from Matea.
Yes, hi, my name is Matea. We are actually currently living in India. And in India, I think there are quite many applications. So I'd just like to hear from you. Would your advice be to apply in Slovenia? And how long does this procedure take once you get the interview?
Do you have any ties to Slovenia?
Yeah, I'm a Slovenian citizen. I work at the embassy here. So my son is here with me.
So as I said before, I asked if you have ties, but actually you're allowed to apply at any embassy or consulate, US embassy or consulate in the world where you can appear for an interview and follow their local procedures. So for instance, you can apply here in Ljubljana, even if you're not normally resident here. But what we tell people that ask this question is, one, they must be committed to remaining in the country for at least a week, because that's the time it takes after the interview to issue the visa. Two, if they get stuck in administrative processing, it could take longer than a week, and we have no way to say that in advance of the interview. And three, it's important to note that we are looking at your academic journey thus far in life and your ties abroad. And for somebody who flies in for an interview from a third country, it's much harder for the consular officer to evaluate those ties, because if you don't have many ties to this country, and we cannot really successfully evaluate your ties to India, we recommend that people apply in their normal place of residence because you have a greater chance of success. But there's nothing to stop you from applying anywhere in the world.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Veronica.
Yes, thank you. So I have one question regarding the insurance in America. So I'm moving to Boston and my college have offered me like a general insurance, but it's really expensive and I'm looking for some alternatives. So my question is if you have any suggestions for me, if there's like a Massachusetts organization that would offer me a bit more cheaper option for general health insurance?
So that's not something I'm going to be able to provide you information on. I don't know, Katya, if you've received this question before in your work with students.
Veronica, I think the best is to write me an email because I don't have the answer right now for you, but you can write me. I will type in the chat our Education USA emails, and I will try all my best to provide you with the answer. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I know this is a bit more specific, but I just wanted to ask if you may know. Thank you anyway.
Okay, maybe I have another question for you, Larissa. So if at the interview, like you get a student who you see that after finishing their studies, they want to work in the US, can this fact influences their chance of getting a visa?
Look, what we want to see at the time of the interview is what is your current intent for when you finish your studies. If you tell me that your intent is to get a job legally through means that become available to you through your studies, that will not be a negative factor weighed against you. It's all about what your intent is at the time, how credible I find you to be, or my fellow consular officers around the world find you to be, as well as what those plans entail. Does it sound like you have a legal path before you that you're considering, or something else?
Okay, thank you.
I see there's one question in the chat. It says, my daughter got a scholarship. We have to pay one part of the school fees. I understand she got a partial scholarship. Does my daughter need to bring proof of funds to the interview? Yes. So if the scholarship is not for 100%, you do have to bring proof of funds to the interview to show that you have the capacity to pay the remaining amount that is not covered by the scholarship for that first year of studies.
Ida, you can ask your question.
Yes, thank you. Hi. I am going on a forward research visit, which is only 10 weeks with the American Slovenian Education Foundation sponsoring me. And I'm wondering, do I need a student visa for 10 weeks or can I enter the country on the visa waiver program?
What is the program that you'll be attending?
It's a research visit at a Slovenian professor's lab. So it's not an official program, but it's a Slovenian Slovenian American Education Foundation asset.
Yes, you will require a J visa. We issue J visas for programs as short as 1 week, for instance. So there is a J visa specific for research scholars. So you would have to work with the professor that you're going to do the research with his or her university to issue that DS 2019.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, it looks like we have no more questions, or maybe another question in the chat box. What is a sufficient proof of funding? Bank statement, Larissa?
Yes, so to show if your funds are in your bank, which hopefully they are, you would show your most recent 3 months of bank statements to show that you have the funds and also a bit of where they came from. I should add or just clarify that the funds do have to be liquid. So you can't come saying, oh, look, I own a car. Oh, look, I own a house. Clearly, I have money to pay for this. No, it has to be funds that you would be able to use as of tomorrow, not funds tied up in some investment. And even if you already showed them to the school or university, which usually you have to do, and it's a protest that I get from applicants sometimes that they have already shown the university that they have the capability to pay, we need to see it here during the interview.
Since it looks like we have no more questions, I would like to thank first you, Larissa, for this really systematic presentation. I'm sure it will help students a lot with their process. Well, should you have any additional questions, maybe you can direct them to me. As said, the easiest way is to contact us either via Education USA Slovenia Facebook page, or you can find all the contacts also at Javni štipendijski sklad's webpage, and I have also written our email in the chat box. So I would like to thank everybody again for their time. You can follow us for more webinar Education USA study, and I wish you all the best in the visa process and in your US studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Katya. See you all at the visa window. Bye.
Bye.